We've gotten a ton of Pokemon Sword and Shield announcements in the last week alone, but am I the only one that thinks they basically net out to mean nothing? As was the case for the last major Pokemon release, Pokemon Sun and Moon, Game Informer has teamed up with Game Freak for a month of exclusive coverage. The thing about this coverage though is it's less about the games themselves from a playing perspective and more about talking about them from a production perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, I find a lot of that stuff to be interesting and I'm sure you guys do too. It's good to learn stuff like the fact that the team at Game Freak nearly doubled to create this game, but this sort of coverage also leads to some unintentional misinformation, especially considering how close to the chest Game Freak is holding their cards this time around. For example, one of the headlines that made the news cycle last week is the revelation that the team working on Pokemon Sword and Shield is comprised of nearly 1,000 people. This is a fact. Technically. The problem with this headline, given the situation that Game Freak has put themselves in with this National Dex fiasco, it has the potential to paint people's perspective on the game in a negative light, all because of the timing of this announcement. We don't know what the breakdown of that figure actually means, who all is a part of the development team, who's marketing, art, localization. All people will see here is, well, 1,000 people should definitely be able to implement 1,000 Pokemon into this game, and that's just inaccurate. Now, for the over 2 decades that Pokemon has been a thing, most people couldn't give a crap about how many people worked on the dev team for the latest Pokemon game. But now people are looking for a reason to validate their anger and opinion that Game Freak is just being lazy. I think being less secretive about what Pokemon are returning and which ones aren't would mitigate the amount of people that are splitting hairs about this stuff. Rip the band-aid off now. Sure, all 35 Behem fans in the world would be bummed out to learn their pride and joy will be cut from this generation of Pokemon games, but everyone else will be relieved to learn the ones they care about will still be in. That said, I'm personally torn on the amount of Pokemon that I think they should reveal pre-launch. On one hand, I think the perspective that they should showcase as many new and returning Pokemon as possible and demonstrate how much work they're putting into implementing new Pokemon into this game is a strong one. It would be hard for the laziness argument to hold water if they implemented over, let's say, 200 new Pokemon. Also, the more they reveal, the more chances they have to win over someone with a new Pokemon design. That said, I think they're stretching this a bit too thin. Although I get the intent behind the Glenwood Tangle Forest stream being to emulate wildlife research, something that can take days if not weeks, months, or even years to make a single discovery in within the Pokemon world, it feels like they made the wrong call only revealing a single new Pokemon in full, a tease of its evolution, and glimpses of a few other unconfirmed Pokemon. We got more build up to that stream than we do most full-on Nintendo Directs. So little coming out of it feels a bit out of whack to me. I don't know, maybe you feel differently and I'd love to hear why down below if that's the case. That said, I've been sold on this game since the wild area was revealed. If I was on the fence, I could see myself being pushed over the edge if they announced a dragon type evolution, Lapras evolutions of some sort, or just a few dope designs that are easy picks for a team of 6. And I know, unlike me, a lot of people wait to decide which starter Pokemon they want until they see its full evolutionary line. We're about a month away from Pokemon Sword and Shield's worldwide release and we still don't know what a single evolution of any of the 3 starters looks like, nor any of their typings. For Sun and Moon, this was around the time that we learned of that sort of thing. The first evolved forms were revealed in the first week of October, the final forms were revealed in the last week of the same month. We're off to a bad start on following last gen's trajectory on this because we're partially through the second week of October at the time this video goes live and we still haven't seen any evolutions. Game Informer even started releasing videos specifically diving into each starter individually, and Game Freak was still cagey about what exactly the Galarian starters will evolve into. I, for one, would prefer to keep most of the Pokemon a secret. I'll be trading for all 3 starters and any version exclusive Pokemon regardless. I'd rather be surprised by Pokemon in the wild than in super compressed trailers on the internet, and the value of the games for me don't really hinge on any specific designs to begin with, so seeing seeing them beforehand actually ends up netting out to be a negative experience in the long run. Just saying, I personally don't mind them being super secretive about this particular thing, but I can see how other people might. The towns and cities in this generation of games are a similar situation as well. We don't know a single town name as of right now, and I find that to be pretty weird. We usually get more details on this sort of thing. Last generation, we learned about the 4 different islands in the Alola region, but the only places we know by name so far for Sword and Shield is Glimwood Tangle Forest, the Wild Area, and sub-areas within that. Game Freak even released footage of gameplay from a town within Galar, and we didn't learn the name of that town yet. We don't know the starting town of Galar either, which is not necessarily a major deal, but it's strange to say the least. Something along these lines that matters a bit more is the gyms that will reside in some of these towns and cities. The amount of gyms that will be challengeable in Sword and Shield seems to be in flux. Initially, a Game Informer article was published that said 18 gyms would be in the Galar region, alongside the reveal of the major and minor league system that is unique to this generation. Later, a retraction was made due to Game Freak reaching out and clarifying that the games would feature a similar amount of gyms to the amount found in past games. Even with that clarification, we still don't know exactly what that means. Are we getting 8 gyms in total per game, with some of those being minor gyms and some being major? Are they only counting major gyms in that total? Maybe the minor gyms are gyms that can be challenged but can't award official badges that are recognized by the Galar League. Also, in this explanation, they said gyms change yearly, so like, how do years work in this game? Will time pass to that extent in a playthrough? And if so, is it condensed like seasons in Gen 5? Will gyms shift in our saves as time advances in real life? Furthermore, even if we still have the same amount of gyms, do they still function entirely the same in every other way? Like, will the wild area serve as a path to sequence break and challenge any gym in any order? This announcement gave me way more questions than it answered, and I doubt that I'm alone in feeling that way. Game Freak has even been cagey about details that I can't personally see any good explanation for, like the autosave feature. It seems like an announcement that has a 0% chance of garnering gamer rage due to the fact that it's an optional addition. The only thing this feature will do is allow those who want it to rest assured that the potential of a long session going to waste due to them forgetting to save can be lessened, if not eliminated entirely. Players that prefer to manually save for competitive and Pokemon collection reasons will be completely unaffected, so it's a win-win scenario. Similarly, they're being cagey about the way experience works in this game. Apparently, the experience share is being phased out and all Pokemon will receive an equal amount of experience by default. But can this be disabled? Because if not, I could easily see that being an announcement they would want to keep under wraps, like they previously did with autosaves, only this time it actually would be something controversial that would need to be damage controlled. I do think it'll be optional though, because they seem to understand the dichotomy that's present in the desires of the Pokemon fan base. Casual fans want one thing and competitive fans usually want the opposite. In addition to those changes, they're also being cagey about how they're changing the battle system. All we know is that they plan to make building a competitively viable team easier to do, and it won't necessarily require breeding, since they mentioned you can use the team you use to play through the game in competitive battles with those changes. On the other side of this, a lot of the announcements being made aren't really announcements, but rather affirmation of what was already known or assumed. For instance, HMs have been out since last generation and remained out in Pokemon Let's Go, so like, why would they bring them back now? Or the fact that future Pokemon games will bring back Pokemon that won't appear in Sword and Shield. Does the existence of Pokemon Home not make that obvious to anyone else? Because I took that as a given. That's not to say it's not worth mentioning at all, but in their own articles individually, why not consolidate all of the previously known info with additional elaboration into a single article? And I know the cynical take on that is for the clicks or whatever, but it just seems to breed misinformation because of the assumption that all articles will have exclusive info in them. I saw way too many people sharing the Pokemon returning in future games article under the impression that they meant the national decks would make it into Sword and Shield, when that is very much so not the case. All in all, for the most part, I don't really like how secretive they are, and and I'm not a huge fan of the fact that a lot of the announcements that they do make cause more questions than they would have answered otherwise. But like I said, maybe you feel differently. Have you been following all the Pokemon Sword and Shield announcements? What has been your favorite one so far? Anything you're hoping to see announced in the near future? Let me know all of that and more in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you would click the like button and share this video with a friend who you also think might enjoy it. If you're new here, why not check out another video I've made recently? I'd suggest checking out the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Squirtle only challenge I made last week. If you end up liking that or some other video we have here linked on these cards, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more videos like this and them every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, that's it for me. See you Thursday, actually, because Parker's not here and I gotta do double duty this week. Okay, goodbye.